PNC News First is presented by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Pizza Hut, we're taking pizza to where it's never been before. Taco Bell, the only place where you live Moss. Colgate, the #1 brand recommended by dentists. And IT&D.
PNC News First, broadcasting live in high definition from Tumon, Guam, on KEQI and KTGM, and on KPPI on Saipan. Here is your PNC News team.
Hafa and good evening. You're watching PNC News First. We are live from the Broadcast Center at Akanta. I'm Jolene Tovis. Thanks for tuning in. Topping our newscast tonight, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero made a revelation yesterday in a letter to GSWA Board Chairman Andrew Gale, sharing her concerns that GSWA had fallen victim to cyber fraud, potentially losing the government of Guam $267,000. Here's more. But the letter provided little details, so PNC met with GSWA General Manager Larry Gast to find out how it occurred.
We actually made the discovery when the bank declined the second transfer that was going to them. And when they declined it, we said, what's the problem? And that's where we found out that somebody had inserted themselves between us and the vendor. Everything the vendor was sending to us, they were intercepting. Everything that we were sending to the vendor was being intercepted by the third party.
He says it was difficult to discover as the third party was intercepting all communications through email between GSWA and the intended vendor. The first transaction was a little over $267,000, but the second transaction could not be disclosed as a result of an ongoing federal investigation. While Gast confirms that $267,000 is lost, he says that the money from the second transaction may still be recovered. The actual vendor the money was supposed to be paid to is Green Corp Limited LLC, a company based out of Georgia, which has a local office on the island. The vendor is contracted for services related to the Ladzon landfill. He says because of the 14-hour time difference between Guam and Georgia, contact was always made through email, a contributing factor which set up GSWA for falling victim to cyber fraud.
When GSWA took over, we maintained all the policies and procedures that the receiver had in place. We were trying not to make wholesale changes at this beginning stage. We're making small, minor changes that help in efficiency and things like that, but we still have the same email addresses that we had when the receiver was in charge.
Further stating that the email account used was a Gmail account established by the federal receiver. As a result of the incident, GSWA email accounts are being transitioned to a GovGuam account, which will be behind the government's firewall, which will provide a little additional protection. The money owed to the vendor has been paid with the exception of the 1 month. Gast says that the vendor is aware as they are also involved in the investigation, adding that the money has been set aside and is sitting in limbo until GSWA learns if any monies are recovered. Gast meanwhile assures GSWA customers that the loss of the money will not have an effect on them, indicating that the money will come from savings made from operational changes that reduce GSWA costs. This news comes just months after the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration purported to the federal court that Guam could manage GSWA.
I can't make judgments for the court. That would be me speculating on something that they would be, that they have to make a decision about. I'm sure it will be a concern of the judge.
GSWA will make the incident known in the next report to the court, but remedies are already being put in place by GSWA to ensure that this does not happen again.
As soon as I found out that there was an issue, we immediately put in place that we will go through the local representatives of off-island vendors to make sure that any changes are true and legitimate requests of them.
The incident has resulted in Governor Lou Leon Guerrero issuing GSWA several directives, which include holding the personnel accountable for failing to follow procedure. Gass says ultimately he is the one responsible and any action taken will be decided upon by the GSWA Board of Directors. In other news, while the Guam Department of Education and Guahan Academy Charter School had been at odds over the use of Building E, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero has already issued a decision approving a lease for the charter school's use of the contested space. In a letter addressed to Education Superintendent John Fernandez, the governor said she is saddened that the months of cooperative work towards addressing the shared use of Building E did not result in a lease between Adelup, GDOE, and GACS. She said this has been an ongoing conversation that started with the previous administration, and while she was hopeful that GDOE would agree that the space could be shared with GACS, unfortunately that did not happen, and she is forced to approve the lease with the charter school. Following the announcement from the governor, Education Superintendent John Fernandez told Andrea Pellicani on News Talk K57 what he felt about the letter.
I was very surprised at the tone of the letter. I felt it was kind of condescending and patronizing in lecturing the Department of Education about how to share our resources, especially in light of all the budget cuts that we've been enduring and trying to address.
Fernandez said GACS already occupied half of Building E and that GDOE even helped them design the classrooms. He also said that there was already an MOU drafted between GDOE and GACS, which only had minor revision requests. Now that GACS has been awarded the lease, Fernandez said GDOE has in essence been already evicted from the property. Taking a look at crime, details have been released regarding the arrest of Jason Oscar Quintanilla Susuico, who self-surrendered to authorities on Tuesday after he was being sought for questioning regarding a criminal sexual conduct investigation. A court magistrate complaint identifies Susuico as the perpetrator, detailing that on September 27th, police had responded to a local high school where a 17-year-old girl had reported she had been sexually assaulted by Susuico, a man known to her. The victim told police that she was asleep on a couch 5 days prior when she was awakened by Susuico removing a blanket from her waist. The victim says she pretended to be asleep and felt him move her shorts and undergarments to expose her private parts. Police say that Susuico then digitally penetrated the minor multiple times before raping her. The incident left the victim unable to move out of fear. A second incident occurred on the 27th, in which Susuico exposed the minor's breast and performed cunnilingus on the girl before digitally penetrating and raping the victim again. This afternoon, Susuico appeared in court to be formally charged with 5 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct and 5 counts of third-degree criminal sexual conduct, but it appears that he refused to cooperate with authorities following his arrest.
Based on the charges, there was a minor victim. We have 5 counts for that first charge. The potential sentence is 15 to life. So that would give the defendant incentive to flee. We also would assert and argue that he's a danger to the victim. There have been multiple counts charged against him where the victim is the same.
The government brings up the fact that we don't know much about who else lives in Mr. Pangania's residence since he's not present. I am willing to release him, but I actually would like that information. So since you have some family members here, can I place you on second call? I'll take the other magistrates and then we'll come back to this case, okay?
Susuico was also listed as AWOL from the Guam National Guard. However, this was not brought up in court. In keeping with crime, Jotnya Mayor Jesse Blas was deemed a danger to the community following his arrest on drug-related extortion charges. And now he wants out, citing he has been wrongfully detained. Here's more. In a motion for revocation of detention order, Blas argues that the justification for his pretrial detention, urged by the government and accepted by the magistrate court, is not a justification for detention allowed by Congress in the Bail Reform Act of 1984. The motion states that the government's flawed argument led to a wrongful detention order that has deprived the Jotnya mayor of his rights under the 8th and 5th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. Blas was indicted on multiple counts related to 3 different alleged violations of law. He stands accused of using his official capacity as Jotnya mayor for his personal gain. by selling cluster boxes to an FBI informant who posed as a drug trafficker. The Jotnya cluster boxes, owned by the United States Postal Service, are overseen by the Jotnya mayor, who is designated to provide the mailboxes to Jotnya residents at no charge. In the motion, his attorney, Joseph Rosano, points out that Blas has no significant criminal record, but District Court Magistrate Judge Joaquin Manabusin agreed with the prosecution that Blas was a danger to the community after FBI agent Rafael Fernandez made statements to the court indicating that Blas used his connections with the Guam Police Department and the Judiciary of Guam Marshals to intimidate and threaten the FBI informant as well as a woman he was romantically involved with in 2018. The motion argues, quote, the court committed error by commanding the detention since Mr. Blas's purported danger to the community is not an enumerated reason to allow for his continued imprisonment pending trial. Both the plain language set down from Congress and precedent from federal courts that have previously reviewed this direct issue confirm that the magistrate judge was wrong to order the detention of Mr. Blas pending his trial. The District Court of Guam should correct this error and release Mr. Blas with whatever conditions of release the court deems appropriate, end quote. Further arguing that his pretrial detention was pursuant to a, quote, flawed legal analysis that was presented by the government. Further citing, quote, the record is clear that the judge's justification for detention matched the same flawed reasoning provided by the government. The judge, in ordering the detention, made it clear that he was ordering Mr. Blas to pretrial imprisonment because he posed a danger to the community, end quote. Rosano also argues that the generalized danger to the community cannot be used in the case to justify the detention, and that Blas's detention is in direct violation of the law. Don't go away. On the other side of the break, we'll look at the government's ongoing dengue outreach and the Great Guam Shakeout, the island's largest earthquake drill.